Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 11th, 2022 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. Commission members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town Bylaw governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, we only have two rules. One is that everyone's invited to speak, but to do so, we ask that you identify yourself. And secondly, as a matter of formality, we introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan. Arthur, I see you.
Arthur Doyle, member.
Tom Palmer.
Tom Palmer, member.
And Wendy.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Garpo, also a member.
Thank you. So we now have our quorum. I do not expect the others to join us this evening. It's possible that Todd may join late. So we can get started. And I think the first order of business is to alert the public and participants in the meeting that some of our agenda items are going to be continued tonight, all at the request of the applicant. Number 8 was which is a request for determination of applicability at Brush Hill Lane, 0 Milton Avenue. That 0 Milton Avenue is actually a Boston address. That case will be continued, or that item rather, will be continued until the November 15th meeting. And keep in mind that we usually are the second Tuesday of the month, but in November, Election Day is the 8th. So we're moving to the next week, which is the 15th of November. That's number 8. Also continued is number 9. That's the request for determination of applicability at 1259 Brush Hill Road, Lot C. That will be continued until November 15. Number 10 on the agenda is the amendment to the order of conditions at 1259 Brush Hill Road, Lot D. That will be continued until November 15th. Number 11 on the agenda is notice of intent at 648 to 652 Canton Avenue. At the request of the applicant, that will be continued until November 15th as well. And then jump to item number 14, which is a request for certificate of compliance at 175 Governor Stoughton Lane, Milton Woods. That will be continued until the December meeting, not November, but December. And next is informational item number 15, which is the Lower Guile Road Field Sports Facility Plan by concerned neighbors. That will be continued until the November 15th meeting. So with that said, if any members of the public were waiting or interested in just those, they will be continued. So now we go back to the beginning, which is number 1. This is an informational presentation, the Neponset River Watershed. This relates to the Unquity Brook Water Quality Report Card. And good evening. Who do we have to speak to? Sean, are you going to help us out tonight?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sean McCanty. I'm the River Restoration Director for the Neponset River Watershed Association.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Can I share my screen?
Yeah. You can.
Perfect. We can, as a quick presentation to kind of go through it and then talk about the findings. So just as a bit of background, we put out a report card in July of this year, which looks at bacteria levels across the Neponset River watershed on a rolling basis for the last 3 years. So that's the reason I've been invited to speak today, and that's kind of what we'll be talking about. And just kind of a little bit of background, the Neponset River watershed is 14 towns and cities that contains the Neponset River and all the tributaries that drain into it. It's a large section. It's 120 square miles, and it contains many of the ponds, rivers, and places for recreation in our area. So all the data that we're talking about today comes from our citizen. It's actually updated. Is our community water monitoring network. We helpfully named SWIMN. And it's monitoring water quality to track changes over time and identify where we can focus our resources to improve water quality. So we look at 41 sample sites across the watershed. Sorry, a little background. 10 of them are in the town of Milton. Yeah, 10 of them are in the town of Milton. We sample them once a month from May to October. So actually our next sampling is this Thursday. And it takes the effort of over 60 volunteers to collect these samples and process them. So in the town of Milton, we have got 3 sites on Pine Tree Brook, which is one of our cold water trout streams, 3 sites on Umpity Brook, and then 4 sites on the main stem of the Neponset along the border with Boston. And so here you can see where those are. On Pine Tree Brook, it's just below Pope's Pond, right before it gets to Turner's Pond, and then Central Avenue right before it gets the main stem of the Neponset over by Lower Mills. For Umpity Brook, it's off Randolph Avenue by Milton Academy, Adams Street where it enters a culvert, and then Squantum Street where it comes out of that culvert over in that area of town. Like I said, this is based on, these report card grades are based on bacteria, and in particular, we're looking at E. coli. The reason we look at E. coli is it's an indicator of fecal contamination. So E. coli bacteria live in our gut and usually are a very simple way of detecting for contamination. It's usually not E. coli itself that we're necessarily concerned about as being a health risk, so much as the other pathogens that exist alongside it, viral concerns and other bacteria. The couple ways it gets into our water, it could come from sewer system problems. So sewer systems that leak into our surface waters, but it can also come from stormwater runoff. So anywhere that water comes off the surface of a road or something, it pick up pet waste, wildlife waste, or even human waste, and makes it into our stream systems and make them not suitable for recreation. So like I said, this is the 2021 report card. So we're all offset by year. This is last year's data in the last 3 years. And just, it's a little bit confusing. This is EPA's grading system. But what it's asking is how often does a certain water body meet the swimming standards set by the state and the boating standards set by the Boston area watersheds. So the criteria are slightly different over the last 3 years. So a poor grade doesn't mean it's the worst offender in terms of bacteria level. It just means that it's most consistently not meeting those standards. So Umpity Brook gets a score of 37%, which means it's actually swimmable only 13% of the time. And Pine Tree Brook gets a score of 56%, and it's swimmable 31% of the time. Like I said, one of the major sources of bacteria into our waterways is street runoff. So we do take a look at the difference between dry weather and wet weather conditions. Dry weather tends to be a little bit better for bacteria. And you can see the difference. The scores are much better in dry conditions. It's 65% boatable in dry conditions for Umpity Brook, and it's 90% boatable in dry conditions for Pine Tree Brook. This is just kind of looking at the bacteria levels, and I know it's a lot of data to kind of throw at you, but this is the last 10 years of data we've been collecting at these sites. And hopefully you can see my pointer. Here on the top row, we've got Umpity Brook from the headwater region on down. So this is at Milton, this is at Milton Academy. And what we can really see is that there's a significant increase in bacteria levels around about 5 or 6 years ago. That's kind of been maintained. More or less, we see that the bacteria concerns in the downstream regions around Adams Street and Squantum Street are more or less consistent over the last 10 years. It's not gotten particularly worse, but it hasn't gotten a whole lot better either. Similarly, Pine Tree Brook, we're not seeing a massive increase this last year in bacteria levels, but it is something we want to keep an eye on and see if we can improve in the future. And this is just how to simplify it down. These are the scores from this past year in the town of Milton. So we start with our 4 sites on the Neponset main stem, our sites on Pine Tree Brook, and then Umpity Brook at the bottom. What we can see is that E. coli is a concern all across Milton, and it's not surprising for an urbanized suburb of a major city like Boston. And all these scores that are in bold fail to meet state criteria for swimmability. So their maximum score, the highest value reported in those 6 sampling sessions, as well as their geometric mean, which is an average of of bacteria levels across the season. So from May to October.
Sean, can I ask you a question, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. On the Equity Brooks, can you, the numbers denoting locations 2, 14, and 16?
Mhm.
Okay, can you help us out with those, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Academy?
Yeah, so Milton Academy is 002. And then Adam Street is 014. And Squantum Street is 016. So they increase as you get closer to the main stem of the Neponset.
Okay, so just continuing this, when you say Adam Street, that is Adam Street in what?
It's Adam Street and
Governor's Road?
That's right. And we were there like a couple of weeks ago where the guy was redoing his stone.
Yep.
Yeah, but you've got a 14 score at the beginning of the culvert and a 16 at the end of the culvert.
Yeah, it gets worse, doesn't it?
yeah, so it's the number isn't a score, it's just a record keeping for us. As you move down, it's moving down in 0.1 of a mile, basically. It's just help us spatially recognize things where they're in the watershed. So yeah, I think it's at Governor's Road and Adam Street and then Squantum Street, right by the interchange with 93.
Curiously, the main stem and Pine Tree Brook seem to get lower maximums as you go downstream.
Yeah, and we do see that across, yeah, Tom, we see that across the board is that the main stem of the Neponset is doing fairly well. And it's the issues within the watershed tend to be a few tributaries, especially in very urbanized areas. But the main stem where people actually do most of their boating and swimming tends to be pretty good.
So Sean, is Uncle Brook 16 where the brook joins up with Gulliver Creek?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and admittedly, Arthur, there are some other drainage pipes that they all come together right at the bridge.
Correct. There are at least 3 in there, I think, there.
I believe you're correct.
And we have all of that downhill slope coming off of Squantum Street.
Right.
The intersection with Granite Ave. Sean, can you kind of translate for us? I know you were giving us percentages of swimmability and boating capacity, but can you translate that for us for my benefit and perhaps some of the benefit of the public? Can you score that on a B, C, D, E, F, like we're accustomed to in schools? How does Uncle Brook rate and how do Pine Tree Brook and Pope's Pond and Turner's Pond rate?
Right. So Uncle Brook scores I'm gonna get it wrong.
You
I'll
won't.
go back. Yeah, Uncle Brook scores an F score, so 30%. This is it's a kind of a graded curve here. And Pine Tree Brook, it's like a C minus. And again, but the one thing I do want to emphasize is this not total bacteria content. I think people hear an F score and they think it's the worst, in the watershed. But it just means most consistently failing. And then the other point too,
Is that good news or bad news, Sean? Consistently failing?
Well, it's not good news, but the criteria are based on what's safe to swim, and I don't think anyone is particularly thinking about swimming in Uncle Brook. So it is, I don't want to undersell it, but I don't want to make it seem worse than it is. And then the other point, I think when we're talking about where these stations are located, they're located in known problem areas. So for example, all of the Pine Tree Brook stations are below Pope's Pond. There are no sampling locations above Pope's Pond where we actually have pretty decent water quality and existing brook trout populations. We focus our limited resources on trying to identify where problems are the worst. So I don't want anyone to take this away and think, oh my God, the water quality is so bad in Milton. It's meant to get at these issue areas and to address them in ways that are helpful.
Can you give us the same scoring? Because some of it sounds pretty bad so far, but give us the same scoring for Pope's Pond and especially for Turner's Pond?
Yeah, so Pope's Pond, let's see, let me see if I can look at this real quick.
I'm not trying to feed you the answers, but I think they're
Yeah.
pretty good scores. Turner's, I think, was an A+.
Oh yeah, so the pond itself, Turner's Pond is an A+. We don't actually have a measure of Pope's Pond. It's not one of the sites we measure, but Turner's Pond, which isn't actually connected to Pine Tree Brook, it's an A+.
So there is some good news there.
Yeah, no, there's definitely good news.
That's what I'm looking for. And the other thing is that to the extent that those scores are pretty low for Unquity Brook, and to some extent in some areas of Pine Tree Brook, does that help us prioritize our remediation efforts? Or should it
so
help us?
it does help us prioritize the remediation efforts. And actually, here, I'll just kind of jump to the end here. So one of the things we do with these scores is, it gives us a sense of what's happening across these areas, over the course of the year. And it helps us navigate where we can kind of prioritize and drill down. And so that's part of our hotspot program. And a hotspot program is just taking a more detailed look at some of these issue areas. So this is just kind of a map of our hotspotting from, I think, 2016 through 2019. And you can see that green is good, red is a failing grade, and yellow is kind of intermediate. These are, of course, distributed across years, so it's not the easiest to look at this and know exactly what's happening. But you can see one of the issues here is things aren't consistently bad. So we can see some green scores here on Unquity Brook, a lot of green scores here on Pine Tree Brook, and so there's the bacteria concerns are sometimes a little bit spotty, which helps. It's a good thing. It's not always, it's not always of concern, but it does make narrowing it down and figuring out what the issue is a little bit difficult. And so one of the conversations we had with the engineering department and with their illicit detection program is this is one of those things that you kind of have to put in resources to in order to see the results in the long term. So a program in which you're looking at illicit detections and you move through, I think Marina Fernandez said it was they're at 25% of the way through checking all the connections. You may not start to see real tangible results until you get up towards 80 or 90%, but it's something you have to keep plugging away at.
Right, and is this the data that we should be using, we the town, not necessarily limited to the Conservation Commission, but the town should be relying upon these hotspots to, if we're looking for a grant, either a state grant or a federal grant to remediate some of the problem areas, is this the data that we should be looking at to figure out where we should be applying for grants?
I would say the combination of our regular monitoring program and our hotspot program is data that's fully available. We're happy to provide it. I know the town also does its own testing of outfalls, so that's also something that you want to couple together with this, and figuring out where to prioritize and put in a grant.
John and Sean, can we stay with this map for just a moment, please?
Yeah.
Sean, Rose Street, Governor's Road, yellow on this map of 1718. You go up a bit and there's a green circle with a red square around it. Can you interpret that for us?
Yeah, so like I said, this is 3 years worth of hotspot data, kind of just mapped all together. And so that red square is a failing grade taken at a different time from that green circle. And actually, give me 1 second, got the map open in the other tab. I can tell you a little bit more about it. So that Green circle was taken in May of 2016, and the red, hang on. Oops, wrong one. Looks like May of 2017.
Okay, so two different readings at two different points in time.
Correct.
John, just looking to the right of that piece, circle with the red, you see coming down Squantum Street, crossing Granite Avenue,
Yes,
and that triangle,
yes,
to the best of my knowledge, that's town-owned land.
yes.
And maybe we can talk with engineering about whether or not that's a possible site for a filtration system, a BMP filtration system to be located, capturing the water coming down,
That
filtering it.
that makes perfect sense, except for the fact that that's a grassed area.
That's correct.
Isn't that going to absorb and clean most of the runoff? I should think the streets would be the most prolific in terms of contributing contamination.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Diverting it from the streets into that area where a filtration
Yes.
system would be
Yes,
established.
okay. Yes, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I wasn't
John,
sure.
has there been any discussion about that? Do you know?
So unfortunately, I don't know.
Okay, so we can talk with our engineering.
Yeah, so I do know that one of my colleagues, Declan Devine, is our BMP coordinator. So he might have some more specific information. I'm happy to connect him with the Conservation Commission, and I'm sure he's been in contact with the engineering department.
And the other road there, John, is I think California Avenue?
Yes, correct. Yeah, that they would both be contributing sources for that outfall pipe that comes out at the bridge where Gulliver's Creek starts or ends, depending on which way you're crawling through the pipe. All right, Sean, that's very helpful. Other questions from commissioners? Any members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment about this? This is very helpful information. I don't see, I'm only looking at 4 participants here, so I can't see any hands raised. Maybe somebody else can. All right, sir. Well, I thank you. And we did, for the public's benefit, we do have the report card with all the analysis attached to it. And some correspondence from our own town engineer, Marina Fernandez. And it's all very helpful. It's part of the public record. And if anybody is interested in finding it, Kathy Bowen at the DPW can provide copies of this information.
Yep. And I'll also say that all of NAPRA's data on its water quality monitoring program is publicly available upon request. And we have a website that kind of directs you to interface with it and take a look at it. And anything that's not there, you can always ask for.
Perfect. Sean, thank you very much. Unless there's a comment or a question, I can't see. Again, I'm only looking at 4 participants. Now, there they are. I don't see any hands there. Any question from Wendy or Tom?
I would just make a comment. I've been a NEPRA sampler for years, and the bad places have remained bad. When I say bad, I mean they're testing high for bacteria. It's not that they look bad or smell bad. The human nose is really good at detecting sewage. And most of the time, if you sniff Pine Tree Brook or Unquity Brook, it smells okay. But I did notice an extremely foul odor at PTB 047 recently. That's where it goes under.
Where is that?
That's where Pine Tree Brook goes under Blue Hills Parkway. There's a little mound in the median. The downstream side, there's a sewer manhole there, stands up above the ground in the trees there. And I was just walking down the parkway and walked by that. It was about a week ago, a warm day, and it was a really putrescent, horrible odor coming out of that manhole. And something about the wind just allowed me to sniff it at that moment. But that's always been a bad space spot for bacteria when you test the brook. And it seems to me that the reason that wet weather grades are so bad is not that pet waste is washing off the parkway, but our very old sewers are leaking into the brook. That's why I think we have these bad stinks in wet weather where sewers are near wetlands. And I think that's what we're going to have to do eventually. It's very good that we're cleaning runoff as it approaches the brook, but until we can keep the sewage out of the brooks, they're going to score high. And we are old town with old sewers. And I think when it rains, the sewers leak into our brooks. That's my personal opinion. I wish I don't have the data that Sean is referring to, but I collected a lot of that data, and I think the trends are pretty clear over the years.
Well, those are good points, Tom. Thank you. And I noted that there were 2 red dots indicating hotspots on either side of the parkway. And of interest to the public is that's right near Guile Road that goes up to the high school. So that might be a priority location for us to, take a look at to see if we can get grant money and try some remediation. And whether it's runoff or if it's leaking sewers, the remediation effort should be directed towards finding the source and getting rid of it.
For sure, yeah.
All right, thanks. So we will use that, and Sean, thank you, and we'll coordinate with our engineering department and the grant writing folks. And we do have them, and I know that Hillary Waite did it for a while. Is Mira doing that now, Arthur?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so we've got our homework then, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is number. Just put my too many papers because I just put my agenda down. What's the next one on the agenda? Oh, here it is. I've got it. 34 Milton Hill Road. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here, Ned Corcoran with Josh Wild and Jim DeSalle. And I'll do a very brief introduction, John, and then hand it over to Jim for the overview.
Perfect. Thank you.
This property is property that was formerly owned by Bernie Lynch, longtime member of the planning board. In July, the planning board approved a 2-lot subdivision of that property. Milton Hill Road dead ends at the driveway entry to that property. The planning board approved, as I said, a 2-lot subdivision with a private way extension of Milton Hill Road along the path of the existing driveway. And we're here tonight to approve or to seek approval, an order of conditions for work to be done specifically with respect to that private way as it follows along just outside the 25-foot setback from an intermittent stream. The stream forms basically as from drainage off of Milton Hill Road and drains downhill towards the Neponset River. And with that, I'll turn it to Jim DeSalle to go more specifically into the plans and materials. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Ned.
Hi, Jim DeSalle from DeSalle Burke Sala and Associates. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, I think Sean, can you give him permission to do that?
Yeah, he already has it.
You already got it. You're good to go, Jim.
Operator error, I guess. Can everyone see that?
Yes, sir, we can.
Great. Okay. We don't need that paint. This is the property right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Milton Hill Road, dead ends. And this was Bernie Lynch's old house. Sandy Wills's house, which is now Rich Hills, is over here. The previous owner, Joe Grogan, lives in this house over here. And this property is David Place's old house and the Hutchison Fields down in this area. Here's the Neponset River. Whoop. This is the wetland line associated with the river. This is the, sorry. Let me zoom in a little bit more so we can see. Okay, this is the old upland line from the original plan. This is the FEMA zone, which is elevation 11, which comes right up around the top of the riprap. This is the coastal bank in this area here. This is the 100-foot riverfront, and this is the 200-foot riverfront. This green line here is the 25-foot no disturbance off the riverside, and this is the 100-foot wetland buffer. So our concern was with the 200-foot river, mainly. The wetlands were flagged by Ecotech, and there's a series of flags along the bank, and then the wetland flags in this area down here, which this is a larger area of wetlands. And you'll notice it's almost like a drainage ditch. There's a small channel that runs down the property, which actually used to be, if you can see over in here, the existing driveway comes in here, and there was another driveway that went down to the dock at one time that's since been grassed over. You'll notice there's an old boat ramp and the old dock here. And we'll be back before you hopefully soon with plans to rebuild that.
Jim, this may be an unfair question, but some of the commissioners may recall, I know Ingrid's not here. I know she'll recall it well. Hans is not here. He'll recall it. But we used to call it the dead zone. And I say used to, it's only about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. But there was about a half acre of property that everything died. Trees, grass, dandelions, nothing survived. And we hired 2 groups of samplers and chemists to go in to try to figure out what did it. And we never found out.
I remember that because it was right around the time we were doing Joe Taylor's house, which was across the street on Forbes Road. I remember this coming up. And like we said, we never, were really involved in that, but I do remember it. But no one's ever figured out what exactly it was, from what I understand.
John, you and I walked that site one day.
Yeah.
And there was a neighbor up toward the left of this particular parcel who attested to the fact that it was salt runoff.
From the roadway, right.
That's correct. Accumulating over numbers of years and going down into that quote pit, close quote.
You are 100% correct, Arthur, but what was puzzling, even with that kind of information, was why did it happen so suddenly? It happened very quickly because we spent a lot of time up there during when Sandy Will was reconstructing the dock, and he had to replicate some coastal wetlands, and he planted seagrass actually. So the commission spent a lot of time there, plus replanting the hill that had been essentially clear cut. I'm going back now 20 years, but that was actually a beautiful area, and it just died. And I forget who first brought it to our attention, but it was shocking how fast it occurred. But you're right. I guess the best guess was that it was street runoff from our snow and ice treatment from the town.
Yeah, and that was a precipitous road, and the gentleman told us that it was very heavily salted.
Yeah.
This Milton Hill Road?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's on that's the Milton Hill Road, not the Forbes Road side.
I was talking to Joe Grogan, who lives in this house here, and he grew up in this house over here, the second to last house that was in front. I guess his parents owned Bernie's land beforehand. And he was saying once they redid this Milton Hill Road, he said water comes flying off of here untreated because, and I guess because of the steepness of the road, it comes down here, goes in this area here, and then comes back out and follows this channel down here, which this channel here is in the old roadway that went down to the docks. And I'm talking a long time ago. This whole area in here now is all grassed.
And that's what I was really leading up to. How's it doing now? Is there some foliage back in that area?
This area here is all grass, and this area down here, and I'm assuming you're going to want a site walk. Getting through here is real dense. You know, there's a path to go around to the dock, but to see these flags here, it's real tough. But it's come back. It doesn't look like it's just, you know, it's not dead man's land. It's
good. No, well, that's good news.
It looks a little bit better. So
right.
So what we ended up doing, if you decide to go down to the site before the site walk and go down, we've made sure we went back down because we did this a while ago, and we made sure all these flags are back in. This flags along these trenches over the summer were disturbed because of lawn mowing and so on and so forth. They're just they were just flags with wire. They look like utility markers because this is a lawn area. So we replaced all of those, and we also staked out the 25-foot no disturb, and you'll see why specifically we did that one on the next slide. But this is Bernie's old house here. Obviously, this will be coming down. Let me go to the next.
Wait, can I hold you there? Go
Sure.
back to those flags, because I know you said you replaced them, so we'll be able to see them, but what are they based upon? And what I'm really asking is, when was the delineation made?
The delineation was made in the spring, probably like.
Oh, this year?
Oh, no, it was this year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It's just that with the sale and everything else going on, and then the subdivision, and these flags in here got wiped out by lawnmowers and so on and so forth. So we replaced these, and you'll see why. It's pretty clear to understand why they got wiped out. So let me go to the next slide. This is our erosion control. We're planning on erosion control all the way down this area here. And the only time we actually go into the outer riparian is there's an outfall pipe here for our drainage system. So we come around here and you'll see that. And we have the wattles planned for surrounding the whole construction site, so nothing will get out. We're planning on removing in the buffer here that's flagged 19 trees, and there's one over here that we're going to be taking out because it's right at the entrance of the driveway, and we have to widen it for the fire trucks. So you'll see all the work we're planning is in this area here.
What do you have at the outfall to dissipate the?
It's just a rip wrap
Rip-rap?
right at the top of the bank, and you'll see it'll dissipate into this area here.
Okay.
So here's the layout that we're proposing a 30-foot wide way, but the road is obviously not that big. That was just for to get our legal frontage. And it pretty much in this area here follows the existing driveway. I'll explain the widths of it later of the actual pavement, but the actual pavement was dictated by the fire department. We wanted it a little bit narrower, but I guess they came up with a requirement of 20 feet minimum for fire trucks. So we increased this to 20 feet, the actual paved portion. And we're going to have a retaining wall just outside the 25-foot no disturb line. And in this area here, it's a double wall so that we can end up with like a 5-foot and a 5-foot wall. You'll see this is where the land slopes down in here. This actual house is the house that JD is going to be building for his family. So this is the actual footprint. This one over here is just, we don't have quite a footprint yet for that. JD is planning on living in this house and selling this lot over here. Let me go to the next. So this is the grading, and you can tell we have like an 8%, 9% grade coming down in here. What we tried to do was mimic the existing road as best as possible. There's we're going to have the driveway for this house come up into this area, and you'll see in the landscaping plan with the landscape architect has put some plantings in this area to replace the trees that we're taking out in the buffer zone. It's an in-depth plan, and you'll see this is the reason why we have the double wall, is to get down the side of the house. And you can see on the next plan, shows.
When you say double wall, is there level land between the two walls?
Yes, about 4 feet level between the two, and otherwise it would have been like a 10-foot wall. That's why we staggered it. This area from here to the 25-foot no disturb is pretty tight, and that's why we wanted to be able to at least walk down here. It's still going to be pretty steep. This is the drainage system. We have the concrete chambers in here and in here, and then there's an outlet pipe with a stone riprap right here. So this is
Are both chambers connected?
Excuse me?
Are both of those chambers connected to the same outflow?
Yes. These catch basins here go into this chamber, and then the overflow comes out here into this one.
Do those chambers infiltrate water, or do they just store it till it?
No, they infiltrate.
How often will you expect that outflow to flow?
We don't expect it to flow much because of the redundancy and because of the size of the systems. And the reason why we did the chambers is they're deeper, and we wanted to stay as far away from the outer riparian as possible.
When you say they're concrete, is that 2 concrete structures or lots of?
No, these are 4x4 chambers. So there's like 30 of them here.
And are they set in like fill or gravel or something?
They're in a bed of stone. Yes. Yeah, there's 45 in this one, and yeah, there's 45 in each of them. There's a lot. And they're 4 feet deep.
There might be an issue, as we've seen at other sites, is how absorbent is the soil around the chambers becomes a question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the drainage calcs are all in the report if you want to go over it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jim, I don't know if you can answer this question. And Tom, you actually might be able to answer the question, but back in the mid to late 90s, when we were involved with the ACEC designation or delineation, I know there was a lot of talk about extending the ACEC boundary in this particular area. And I know at one point, people wanted to extend it all the way. Some people wanted to extend it all the way to Adams Street, and that was rejected. But I don't know if there's an actual delineation line for the ACEC. Do you know? Either Jim or Tom or anybody, actually.
We checked. There's no ACEC in this area right here. And it's a funny line. It's like the Commonwealth in front of the Keiths and the 2 guys at the end.
All the way up to Michael Moore's.
If you go at Michael Moore's, there's Commonwealth-owned land.
Yes.
It's funny how the zones change going from site to site, and I don't know how that came about, but we did check for the ACEC, and there was no ACEC associated with this lot. but I will double check.
Doesn't,
that, yeah.
but doesn't it go right down to the water? I thought the ACEC went all the way out well, I was going to say Granite Street, but I think it may go beyond that.
It
Like
goes down
Oak
to Squatter
Pond.
Point. Yeah, it's an Imponza estuary.
Yeah.
And certainly it goes a high water mark here. I don't see the high water mark on the plan, but generally.
Oh, wait, I take that back. Here it is. The limit of the ACEC is this line right here.
The dotted line. Okay.
Yep, the Neponset River estuary.
Yeah, is that set by annual mean high water, or what is
It
it
might
set
be
by?
high water plus 100 feet. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Okay. All right.
I can double check on that because Burke did that one.
All right.
It looks like it's an elevation.
What I was leading up to is whether or not this is going to require a MIPA review,
Okay, I'll look into that.
because if it's ACEC land, it does. Well, that is, if there's some alteration in it. I don't know where your alteration stops.
Our alteration stops right here,
It does. Okay. Well,
Yep.
that may-
and it's
that-
only 400 feet in the upper riparian. Besides that, everything else stops here.
Got it. Okay. Well, to my knowledge, that would not trigger
I don't-
MIPA
yeah.
review. Okay.
Maybe if you went to redo those docks and piers.
Well, that's
Yeah.
another job.
Right.
Thanks.
Were you talking about removing them or fixing them?
Fixing, rebuilding.
Rebuilding them? Okay.
There's one that's made of fill and there's one that's on piles.
This is the boat ramp, and over here are the piles that are left.
Right. And it's lost a few piles every decade for about 50 years.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Yeah.
gets
No, it's a
lifted
mess.
up by the ice.
It's been a mess for a long time. Okay, so there's that. Let me see what else we can. Yeah, that's just the. So, I mean, that's pretty much, the extent of what we plan on doing, but you can see here's, except for the riprap, this is the limit of work.
I wouldn't call it a riprap. I've been down on that muddy shore in the shade. And yes, there are a lot of stones down there,
Yep.
but I think riprap is armoring that's often fitted, and it's not really that organized. They look like they were just pushed down there at some point. They don't really look like they're doing bank protection to me, but
No,
yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's, if anyone has any questions relative to this, I think the landscape architect is here, if you wanted to ask him any questions about the,
Well, yeah, I do, but actually it's a preliminary question, and that is, have you done a tree survey? I know you said 19 trees were coming out.
Yes.
Have you surveyed them? Have you
Yes.
identified them?
Yes.
I'd like to take a site walk.
Yep. And this is the tree removal, tree removal count. And my limits of trees are deciduous and coniferous. I have those, these are all, the trees that are coming out are all deciduous trees. And 4 to 8 inches, we're removing 10, and 8 to 18, we're removing 10. And they're mostly, they're easy to show, we can have them flagged, but they're mainly along the edge of the existing driveway that's there now. And it's basically because we had to increase the road for the fire department and the grading along the edge due to that widening of the road.
All right. Well, as part of the tree survey, if you can identify the ones that are coming out, would be very helpful. I know you've got measurements there, but we're trying to shift from our old performance standard of 3 to 1, and we're using a circumference at breast height.
Mm-hmm.
So those measurements, we're going to need eventually. So that the idea is to replace the same sum of the circumference inches or whatever measurement you're using, whatever.
Kathy sent us over that your
Okay,
new
good.
regulation. So yeah, I can put that together for you for the sidewalk.
That would be very helpful. Maybe what we can do, and I'm not cutting off debate or questions or responses, but everybody should be checking their calendars to see what's an appropriate Saturday to do a site visit. And Ingrid, when I'm looking at my phone, I'm trying to find Ingrid's message to me, because she did give me the dates that she can and cannot come. But if people, we can keep going with your landscape architect, but people should be considering what would be a good date to go out and pay a visit.
She said 10, 20, and 11, 12 were okay. Are those Saturdays?
Did you get her email? I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Oh, good.
She said it was available 10, 20, and 11, 12.
The 20 is not a Saturday.
Right. I saw that. I think she meant the 20.
Second?
I think so. I did
Yes,
notice
I
that
bet.
there was a mistake in the email.
Tom, what were the two dates again, please?
In her email, she says 10, 20, and 11, 12.
Okay, thanks. 12 is on a Saturday, so she must mean the 22nd. Thank you.
Well, I can do either one of those.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, Arthur, can you?
I'm good.
All right, Wendy?
Either of those work for me as well.
Beautiful. Okay, we've got 4, and if those are good for Ingrid, I know she'll want to be there 5, and I'll talk to Todd and Hans. So why don't we do it earlier rather than later? Because our next meeting is the 15th. So if we spot any issues, it would be better to go on the 22nd so that we could, give the applicant time to respond to our questions on the 22nd.
Okay.
Before our next meeting on the 15th. So why don't we target Saturday, the 22nd at Wendy, 8:30, okay? I have to check the time with you, sorry.
Yes, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, 8:30 a.m. Can we meet you on site at the Forbes Road entrance?
On Milton Hill Road, you mean?
Milton, yes, I'm sorry, I've got it backwards.
Yeah, right at the end of Milton Hill, you can probably pull right in the driveway.
Okay, good. All right. But again, I'm not cutting off debate here because I would like to hear the landscape plans.
Can you guys see my screen? I'm Mike D'Angelo, landscape architect. My firm's MDLA. Do you see the screen?
Yes, got it. Thanks, Mike.
So this is the overall plan, just so you can see the entire site here, but I'm going to zoom in on a couple enlargements. So you can see that, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this is the entry where I'm circling right now. And then this is the driveway and JD's house itself. And then as you saw earlier, this area I'm going to highlight is the flagged area that Jim was mentioning. So I'm going to fast forward here. So as you come in along the driveway, we're really not touching anything along the south of the page here. As you work your way down, you'll see where, as Jim mentioned, we have some retaining walls we had to install just to hold up the grade of this driveway. And also, as Jim mentioned, we are taking down some trees within that 100-foot buffer. So we're coming back, we're planting 26 new trees. The exact caliper inch calculation, I'll let Jim handle that, before your site walk. But we are putting back more than we're taking down per the requirements. So that's good.
Well, the requirements are, they
It's
have
a range.
changed.
Right.
Well, it used to be 3 to 1. So my guess is that if you're taking down 19 and Jim just went through were those diameters of the trees? I don't think you're going to make it with 26 for 19.
Well,
That's
there's a range, I believe. I was looking at the document that Jim had, if we're talking about the same document, Jim. So it's.
Yeah, that was the same document that Kathy gave me.
Yeah, you had 10 and 10, I thought, or something like that. And some were, 4 to 10 inches and some were 10 to 18 inches.
Correct.
But it at least approximates our old 3-to-1. So I'd be shocked if you could replace, I mean, if you got 10 trees between 10 inches and 18 inches, it's doubtful that 26 trees are going to replace those. Only because it's very, well, you know better than I do. It would be difficult to transplant a large tree. I think you could
Right.
start a lot smaller in terms of the caliper.
Right. Yeah, we're going to be more in the 3 to 3.5 inch caliber, but we'll put together that calculation for you for the site.
All right, good. Thank you.
But for now, I'll show you the plan and I'll show you the species list that we're working with. So this is an enlargement at the house. You can see the retaining wall a little clearer on this plan, probably it's a little bigger. You can see the retaining wall. You can see how it terraces down, as Jim was mentioning. So it's makes it a little smaller. It's 2 5-foot walls instead of one 10-foot wall.
I'm just curious. I don't know if JD has little kids, but there are 2 5-foot walls and it's only a 4-foot strip. I'd be terrified that somebody's going to fall off that without a fence.
Yeah, so we'll make sure there's a guardrail on top of this, especially we're concerned about the cars coming down here, and so there will be a guardrail adjacent to that wall.
Okay.
There's some pathways that lead from the driveway and the pull-in here to the main door. Very limited amount of lawn in this area. It's mostly all native plantings. It's all the plantings you see are native, in fact, but very little lawn. There's a mown pathway that takes you down this slope down to this lower level and then down to the backyard. And then some natural stone steps that take you up to the basement level, the walkout basement level, call it. Very simple landscape design, hard permeable, I'd say, and really simple, really focusing on, making it look like it's a natural landscape planting. And, I'll show you some of the plantings we're proposing. So we have, like I said, we have about 6 trees: box elder, serviceberry, gray birch, American yellowwood, tupelo. You guys still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Clethra, berry, mountain laurel, growlow, sumac, viburnum. So a lot of really good hardy native plantings to try to stabilize any of these slopes that we're dealing with on this property. I think I have some photos in this package too I could show you. That's the color plan that might help explain it a little better for you guys.
Sure, that's helpful, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that the only lawn we have is in the front yard. Otherwise, it's really, we're really trying to plant these areas and make it look natural, introducing some boulders, flowering trees, taller deciduous trees along the driveway, planting between the wall where we could with some sumac, and then planting these slopes leading up to the house.
How big is the house?
JD, you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's about 5,500 square feet.
Okay, thanks.
And then just some images of the trees: the tupelo tree, the magnolia, the birch, swamp white oak, serviceberry, and then some of the understory shrubs: the panicum, bearberry, the sumac. We like that one; it's a good slope stabilizer. So is the low bush blueberry, and some clethra for some of the lower areas. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions?
Wendy, any from the perspective of horticultural, the variety of plants?
I don't think so, John. Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. All right, good. Are there other questions from commissioners? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? I hear none. So let's plan on meeting at 8:30 at 34. It's 34 Milton Hill, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. on the 22nd of October.
Sounds good.
Perfect. All right. Thanks all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
You.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 1268 Canton Avenue. Do we have an applicant? Anybody? That's David and Marge Jeffries home that was demolished. We went out there and talked about, the only issue for us was the location of the well that was decommissioned. But we really need somebody to present this for the applicant. And Steve not being here, I can't tell you who said what to whom leading up to this. Let me just take a quick look at some of my papers here. It seems to be in order, but our protocol is that somebody's got to ask us to do something.
Mr. Kiernan, MATV here. I have the letter addressed to you up on the screen right now.
Correct. Yeah, I've got that in my hand. I guess the key is that there was one deviation. I'm looking at the second to last paragraph on the front page. You may want to blow it up. The commissioners all have it, but it would be hard for the public to read it. But it says here, it says, to the best of my knowledge, information, and belief, the project was completed in general conformance with the plans referenced in the order of conditions. Based upon my review of the original plans referenced in the order of conditions and the as-built survey plans. The temporary disturbance in the buffer zone has been restored. The only deviation from the proposed work shown on the project plans concerns an approximately 400 square feet of area within the driveway disturbed during the demolition work. The area has been repaired with new pavement within the 100-foot buffer zone. The driveway repair is considered a minor activity.
There's
Oh,
pictures
man,
of that work.
I don't know. That's what you call argument by assertion. I don't know, 400 feet of disturbance during the demolition work, and it was repaired. I would like to, maybe we could add that to, I don't think there's going to be a problem, but I'm not sure you can say that 400 feet of disturbance is by declaring it a minor activity. I would like to, I don't think there's an issue here, and I don't think there are any greater conservationists, enthusiastic supporters than the Jeffries family, including Peter. So I don't anticipate any issues, but it is a deviation, and perhaps we should at least take a look at it. We could do that on the 22nd. So I don't think there's a time issue here. At least I'm not aware of any. Does anybody have any further information on that? So my suggestion would be to just in order, it would be a whole lot easier if somebody were here to present it. But not having that, my suggestion is we just put it on the list for the 22nd and just, it won't take long, I'm sure, just to make sure that the deviation is minor.
Would you want somebody?
Yeah, there's somebody, I think somebody should be there.
So they'll have to be notified.
Yeah, I'll talk to Kathy tomorrow, and I guess it would be Matthew Mazzoni or Mazzoni.
Engineer, right.
That's the engineer. I mean, that's what we've got in our hand. I mean, it looks to be in order, but he's just declaring a deviation as being minor, and I don't know enough about the deviation. So that's my suggestion. Anybody else have a different view?
I agree, we should go.
All right, so we'll put it on for the 22nd. It'll probably be 9:30, but I'll give that information to Kathy Bowen, and she can reach out to Mr. Mazzoni. All right, thanks. Next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 669 Randolph Avenue. Now that one, I am thoroughly confused because the dates are what are throwing me off. Is Deb Keller here?
I am here. Good evening.
Hi, welcome. Good evening.
Yeah,
Can you help us out, because I'm
yes.
bouncing back and forth between June of 2020 and September of 2022, and I can't tell what was done when.
Sure. I can go through that briefly, quickly. Deb Keller with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. So we have submitted a request for a COC for 669 Randolph Ave. And we completed an as-built survey back in June 29 of 2020. The project was to install, extend a driveway in the backyard and install a rain garden to treat that runoff prior to discharge off the property. So the driveway and the rain garden were installed in June of 2020. What we waited for before filing the COC was making sure that the vegetation within the rain garden survived. So we waited two growing seasons for that. What happened the summer of 2020 and with COVID and everything kind of slowed us up. So that's why it took us a bit longer to get back to you. And within that time, unfortunately, when the construction happened, it was somewhat of a rainy summer. So, and the rain garden area obviously took a little bit longer to vegetate. So we have in our letter some more current photos of the rain garden that were taken this summer, which show that it's fully vegetated. But the one, and you can see, I put in two photos back from 2020, where you can see where there was, it started to vegetate, but the rain garden was holding a fair amount of water within it. And what that did was the blueberry bushes that were planted, we had our fingers crossed and we're hoping that they were going to survive. They did not. So we have since replaced those. Those were replaced this fall. As of October 1st. And so as noted in our letter, I noted 3 slight changes from the original plan work. We evaluated the volume, storage volume within the rain garden. Obviously, when you're grading the rain garden, it doesn't come out, sometimes doesn't come out exactly as drafted on a site plan. So the volume was slightly less than what we had proposed on the plan, but as I went back and looked at the required water quality volumes, it did comply with the required volumes. Therefore,
required by the order of conditions, or required by
the stormwater management requirements. Looking at, yes, our proposed plan presented in our stormwater calculations presented a certain volume of water quality treatment to treat the proposed driveway. And we had, I apologize, I don't have the exact numbers, but just for an example, say it was 10 cubic feet of volume that we needed. We had proposed more. So we had proposed, say, 50, and the existing rain garden as built was 35. So it was less than what we had originally proposed, but greater than the minimum required per the stormwater calculations.
All right, but I understand what you just said. I guess my question is, notwithstanding what was proposed and what's required, what do the order of conditions say? I mean, does it differ from what the order of conditions said? That's
order of conditions doesn't specifically identify the numbers other than the volumes, other than the plan reference that we have. But
it's different than the plan reference.
Correct.
All right. And what about, I'm struggling here because I didn't see it in the packet, so I called for the order of conditions. And I noted that there was a tree
Yes.
that was to be planted. Is that there?
If I might, I could share my screen and I could show.
That'd be perfect. That'd be great.
Is
Okay.
that the red maple?
Yes, it's the red maple. You are correct, sir.
So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
Zoom into this back area here so you can see. So the red maple was installed just at the end of the driveway here, right along the property line. So this is the area of driveway that is new. And this, we had a pea stone diaphragm along this edge. This proposed driveway pitches over here to the rain garden. It also captures runoff down the driveway. So we have a little forebay here. And then riprap at the outlet before it ties in. As you can see, these are 4 16-inch pipes that come off the abutting property, which is the deep, I don't know if it's all where this water is coming from, but it's coming from the DPW property and runs down through the backside here, which is a drainage and sewer easement. So this rain garden discharges into that flow path. And so that was existing conditions. And so the rain garden here was to treat this new portion of driveway. So the maple tree is here.
Was that planted or was that pre-existing?
No, that's a new tree planted. And I
Okay.
believe in the letter we showed,
That's what I was looking for.
oh yeah. So on the second page of photos,
Yeah.
the bottom one has a photo of the rain garden, and just on the left-hand side, you can see the red maple tree right on the corner of the pavement.
Got it. Okay.
Those are actually good photos on that page too, because you can also note the 2 willow trees that were cut previously before this project started. One is in the corner here, and I think one is up here. They were cut, and in the photos you can see how they're growing back quite well.
Water, water, water.
Yes, exactly. So they're very happy. And then those, I'll reiterate again, the 3 items that we noted was the volume of the rain garden, but I would say that I have reviewed it from a stormwater calculation standpoint and believe that the rain garden currently meets those standards. We did replace the blueberry bushes, and in conversations with Steve Ivis prior to him heading out, we were considering planting different vegetation here, but Andy Vo, the owner, really would like to try the blueberry bushes again. And I do actually think now that the rain garden is fully established, we have a lot of vegetation here, I think they have a better chance of making it rather than during construction. And then thirdly, the last was noting that the 2 willow trees, again, are regrowing.
That's good. Can you help us here?
Sure.
Listen carefully to what I'm saying, because if you replanted stuff, I mean, we have that performance standard where we wait to see what the survivability rate is.
Sure.
But if the original planting from 2 years ago, would you consider the blueberry bushes that didn't make it to be less than 25%? Can you say that there was a 75% survival rate?
I would say yes, there is. There's
Okay.
3 blueberry bushes that were replaced out of all of the shrubs in the rain garden.
Okay, all right. Because as long as we make the 75% after the 2, and I know there's some controversy as to whether or not it's 2 years or 2 growing seasons and how many growing seasons in each year. But I'd just like to be able to say that, or I'd like you to say that, that you made the 75%.
Yes,
Okay.
I would support definitely 75%. we had 75%. There was only 3 blueberry bushes that were replaced.
Understood. All right, any questions from commissioners? Are there abutters or members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 669 Randolph Avenue? Anybody? All right. Is there a second for that?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. There's a hand up from someone in the audience.
Okay, with the screen, I can't, I see.
sorry.
Oh, Andy Vo.
Yeah, let me stop sharing. I think you can see it now.
I can see it.
My apologies.
Andy, good evening.
Hi, this is Andy from 669 Randolph. Just want to thank this committee for helping me out, allowing me to build this rain garden. I don't know if you remember, but in the past, there's a lot of rainwater get into my house. But with this rain garden, it's helped a lot. There's no flood after this was built. And I just want to thank this committee. And also the red maple is great. It's surviving very good. I replaced the blueberry, and like Deb said, that the willow tree is starting to come back. And just want to thank this committee. That's all. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, good. Well, thank you too for working with us, because I have a very clear memory of being there and seeing the flooding, and anything we could do and you can do to correct that is good for everybody. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right. I don't see any other hands. So there's a motion. Wendy, did you second it?
I don't think so, but I will.
Okay, I wasn't trying to coerce that, whip the vote. I wasn't trying to do that, but all right. So there's a motion to issue the certificate of compliance based upon the representation by the PE, Ms. Keller, and that there has been substantial compliance with the order conditions. And is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we need to take an individual vote. Arthur Doyle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I've John Kieran, I vote yes as well. So it's unanimous. Andy, thank you very much. And Deb, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. Next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance from 5 Wagon Wheel Drive.
I think that's me again.
Okay.
So Deb Keller from Merrill Engineers. And so this request came about, I believe, with the potential sale of the property through the owner, Keith Russo, and found out that there was an outstanding order of conditions from back in 1984. So we did go out. I think there's another topic on the agenda, but we can talk about that just after this. But our survey department went out, did a field survey, and if I could, I can share my screen again.
Sure.
Show the as-built plan. So the as-built was completed this August. The wetlands were delineated by ECR in July of this year, and we did field locate them. They do run along a sort of a boulder retaining wall in the backyard. So I pulled the 1984 order, read through it. My understanding from reading it, it was for the original construction of the home. With this as-built, the site is stable. And so I would request, or we respectfully request a certificate of compliance from the 1984 order of conditions. And then I do know that we'll be moving into sort of a restoration plan for some of the tree removal that happened just recently, but this was to focus on just the closing out the 1984 order of conditions.
I'm lost in terms of the stabilization. I would hope it would be stabilized after 40 years or so.
Yes.
But does this certification of compliance with the original order of conditions include the structure itself? I mean, there was a engineering plan that was not just landscaping, because our enforcement order, which is the next item, is really an issue of landscaping and what's surrounding the house.
Correct. Unfortunately, since the order, the 1984 order is so old, we couldn't find a plan, record plan to go along with it. So the only document that we had to use was the conditions that were within the original order.
I'm sorry, you do have the original order?
We have the original written order, but there was no plan associated with it.
That I understand. Okay.
So unfortunately, you know, this order is 4 pages long. They were definitely not as detailed as our current orders are. But reading through it and following it, it seemed that this order really focused on maintaining the sewer easement on the property, not allowing the drainage flow pattern to be blocked, maintaining, you know, and minimizing any erosion during construction. And as noted, like you mentioned, you know, taking the tree removal aside, the site is fully stable. There is no excavation, current excavation or any exposed soil at this point.
All right, if you could just give me, and I don't think this is in everyone's packet,
Sure.
but I had asked Kathy to go back and see what she could locate, and I don't have the plan here either, but I do have.
The order.
Yeah, I've got the order. I just, you know, the special conditions are what I'm interested in. So 13 is debris on area marked as sewer easement on said plan shall be removed. Construction shall be such as to prevent structural collapse.
Yep.
That's good. That's a good order. Build a house that doesn't fall down. Applicant shall preserve the existing wetland vegetative cover while complying with the approved site plan, and shall maintain the wetland and vegetative cover in a natural state after completion. Drainage course to the existing drainage inlet at the north corner of lot 14 shall be maintained. Can you show me the north corner of lot 14?
I believe that inlet is over here.
Okay.
And it comes and discharges here, runs through the wetland and outlets over here. And my discussions were, and I believe this was with Steve Ivis, that he recalled that this was clogged at one point a few years back and was cleared out and really helped that flow pattern continue. And so that was sort of how I looked at that comment too, that drainage pattern needed to be maintained.
All right. So, and the other special conditions are, you know, adequate erosion and siltation prevention, both before and after construction. And then our classic one, which is no storage of equipment and or materials, and no operation of equipment shall occur within the bordering vegetated wetland area, except for the removal of the debris. So most of it is, it doesn't look like there's anything permanent other than that drainage course to be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are there any questions? This goes back. I mean, this goes back even before I was on it. This is one of the first ones I've had that predates me. Jeez, scary.
That's
This
100 years,
1984.
John.
I know. I thought.
Wow.
I thought I had them all. I looked for my signature on it. It's not there. Any questions from commissioners on this issue? All right. Well, we have. Are there any abutters or members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? I hear none, and what we're confronted with is a request for a certificate of compliance with the original order of conditions, which is dated, I know it's 1984. It's dated December 14th, 1984. And it appears that the construction of the house was done in compliance with the order conditions, and that has been attested to by Deb Keller as a professional engineer. So I would entertain a motion to issue the certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any discussion from commissioners? Hearing none. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes, John Kiernan as well. So thanks. So we go on to the next agenda item, which is the enforcement order at 5 Wagon Wheel Drive. Deb, you've got the floor again.
And I think
maybe
I've got
Ned,
the
you
floor
go.
on that.
Okay.
Thanks, John. Deb, Ned Corcoran on behalf of Keith Russo. I picked this up recently. I know that there was a hearing on September 13th. It appeared from the record that the hearing was closed. There was an approval of a plan, but Steve Ivis and Brad Holmes, who was the landscape architect, went out and took a second look and added another layer of proposed buffer replacement trees right along the buffer edge, which I think in some emails that I've seen between Steve and the commission, Steve approved substantially and actually urged Mr. Russo to begin installation of those plantings, even at risk to a denial of that plan tonight. He does have a contractor ready to go next week to start planting. He has accepted the approved plan, the plan that's been submitted, as you see here, that was agreed to by, as I said, Brad Holmes and Steve Ivis in the field. I know that Deb has added this additional layer of plantings to the plan. And so we would ask the board, the commission, to approve this plan with respect to this enforcement order and allow Mr. Russo to begin the actual planting work in this season starting next week.
All of that makes sense, Ned, and thank you. And my memory is that we sort of approved that approach, at least in concept, subject to the approval of Steve for the landscaping plan when it was presented. And that's everything seems to be in order and following that course. And we've got two components to the issue of lifting the enforcement order. And I understand that there is or maybe a sale pending.
There is no sale currently pending. The sale that was pending fell through. The property is on the market, and Mr. Russo is actively seeking another buyer. And with a full disclosure in that process to this process, that whoever the new buyer is would assume whatever obligations for maintenance of these plantings into the future, and that would be written into the purchase and sale agreement. That provision would survive the closing of the deed, passage of the deed, and the closing on the sale. And so I think that's fairly adequate protection. I know that you and I spoke about the potential for a bond here. I think I understand the desire for a bond. I would just ask that the commission be reasonable with respect to the amount of the bond. This is a significant cost of planting this volume of trees, as you can see on the plan. So I think a reasonably sized bond necessary to assure the successful growth of these trees, assuming that a substantial number of those trees would likely survive, but that some would not. And so I would ask the board, the commission, to consider an amount of bond that would be necessary to assure some number of those trees that might be subject to failure, but not at the full cost of the amount of the installation.
Well, we've got some precedent for this because, and in fact, it's on it's on our agenda tonight again, I think, at that 593 Blue Hill Avenue. And what we did is for the sale of the house, we asked for a bond and we received the bond. Well, that actually was an escrow in the purchase and sale in the amount of their plan, which was a lot. It was $67,000. And the homeowners came back and said, look, that's an awful lot. It's an awful lot of money, number one. Number two, we don't need all those plantings. So we asked them to present a plan that was approved, appropriate and approved by us. And that the price was actually $16,600. So we then dropped the price of the bond from $67,000 down to $16,600. And for the public's benefit, a bond doesn't cost you that amount of money. It's just you pay for the security for some period of time. So it's nowhere near that amount of money. So my suggestion is, if I heard what you just said, Ned, and that the cost of this plan is pretty substantial. What are we talking about? What range are you in? Are you in the 16,000 or the 67,000?
I think it's somewhere close to 25,000.
25,000. Well, a bond or an escrow is usually about 10%, so that'd be 2,500. And if it's, I can guess what the price of the house is, it's pretty high. And just escrowing $2,500 for 2 years would not be cost prohibitive.
I would agree with that. I think that if that were the commission's preference, a $2,500 escrow would certainly.
No, I'm saying that's the cost of the bond. It would be the 25,000 that I'm trying to protect, not the 2,500.
Understood. So $2,500 bond to secure the $25,000 obligation.
Correct.
Okay, I understood.
I'm not pricing the bond, but that's my understanding, that the bonds are about 10%.
Okay. We will. I think that's acceptable. Understanding that I am familiar with bonds in the highway construction process. I'm not as familiar with bonds of this nature, but with a little bit of research, we should be able to make that work.
All right. Are there any other comments or suggestions by commissioners? I just think we need to be consistent in dealing with these issues and ensure that we have that 2-year survivability plan protected. Any suggestions of a different approach or any other ideas? I'm not hearing anything. Okay. Other members of the public? I mean, I'm perfectly comfortable relying upon Steve. And Steve did say that he thought the plan was good and would work. So I'm comfortable with that part of it. And our discussion at our last public meeting was such that conceptually we agreed to that approach, that as long as he approved the plan, that we gave him that authority that we could move forward. So I think we're at that stage. And I think the way to protect both the Conservation Commission and ensure that the homeowner complies with the state standards of 75% survivability after 2 years, I think the bond is the way to go. Any other comments? Are there any abutters or members of the public that want to make a comment? Have a question? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to lift the enforcement order on the condition that the plantings get planted and they can start right away, and hopefully take advantage of this weather to start the growing process, and then bond that amount until the certificate of compliance is requested, which would require the two-year period of survivability? Is there such a motion to do that? Or a better idea?
I will move that motion.
Okay. Any second? Was there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Arthur. All right, any discussion or comment on this? All right, so the motion is to lift the enforcement order because, back in the day, just like a year ago, we used to require a notice of intent to remedy the enforcement order. but DEP asked us not to do that. And they said, just issue the enforcement order and then give them the terms, the homeowner or property owner, the terms and conditions to remedy the mistake that was made, and not issue a notice of intent. So we're not actually dealing with that. So we can do two things. One, we can lift the enforcement order, and Kathy's got sort of a template form notice letter for doing that, which can be recorded because that will have to be done at the Registry of Deeds to allow the sale to go forward. But as a condition of that, we will have the homeowner, and I don't know whether it falls on the seller or the buyer, but somebody has to pay that bond, and that will be part of the letter lifting the enforcement order. That's the motion. Correct, Arthur?
Correct.
All right, correct. Tom, did you second that?
Yes.
All right, good. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes too, John Kiernan. Thank you. Good to go, Ned. Thank you. Thanks, Deb. All right. Next on the agenda is 1207 Canton Avenue.
And I've got that one as well. John, I know we had a hearing on September 13th on a notice of intent. The commission conducted a site walk 2 Sundays ago, sort of an unusual time. And
I mean, the thing is, we had, I don't want that attorney. Well, because he's representing the other guy. He's not representing us.
I no shit. But
Wait a minute. Hang on.
Well,
one at a time.
Call your own Zoom call.
How do you know?
Because I heard
someone's not muted.
Guys,
Yeah.
somebody better mute them. Can you mute, please? I see Jennifer, you're talking to somebody. I don't know who it is.
I wasn't talking to anybody.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at my screen and your picture was encircled with a yellow box. I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, I wasn't talking to anybody. I was just waiting to speak and say hello.
Oh, okay. Hello. Ned, you're back on, Ned. I'm sorry. That was
yeah, that was live entertainment every once in a while.
Who are you representing?
Yeah, well, I'm representing Kevin and Daniela Prussia, who are the owners of the property at 1207 Canton Avenue. We have a notice of intent. There was a hearing on September 13 with a site walk on Sunday, September 25. I think that from my understanding, I was not present at the site walk, but my understanding it was very productive. And that, but there was essentially one sort of issue that has popped, and that is dealing with whether or not there should be a dry wall as opposed to a drainage swale to address some of the stormwater. And with that, I will leave that to Jennifer Kunkel, who's taken the lead in the design. We have Miles Connors from Parterre to talk about the planting as appropriate, and Peter Lyons from Collins Engineering to talk about the engineering components as well. So with that, I'll hand it to Jennifer, and appreciate the opportunity for all of us to be here with the commission tonight.
Good, thanks, Ned. Jennifer, you're on.
Great, thanks, Ned. Hello to all the commissioners. It's good to see you again. We did, after the site walk, took all of your suggestions and delineated them on the documentation that we provided to you. We moved the pool 2 feet away from the 25-foot offset. We've provided a planting plan for all of the areas within that 100-foot offset from the historic wetland line, and those include natives and cultivars of natives, inkberry, dogwood, viburnum, in the area, planting areas, and you can see the plan and the plant list that I submitted. We've reduced the number of stones along that 25-foot line from the wetlands to, we had a whole line every couple feet, and now we have about 3 stones just to be indicators in the lawn and the wet meadow. And we did create a planting swale that comes along the edge. It's about 20 to 25 feet long, that goes along the outdoor living areas to collect a first flush of 28 cubic feet of water. And it includes water loving plants like clethra, for you to kind of review and see what you thought of that. We believe there might be a high water table out there, and so therefore a dry well might not be the best option in that location. So we wanted to create a more naturalistic way of collecting that water and provided that on the plans. And then the other item that Parterre Ecological submitted a plant schedule for restoring that area, and he's welcome to speak to that. But as an overview, I think we provided a plant schedule versus a plant plan so that we can get the invasives under control and kind of see what's out there and then create a plan at a later time once the inventory of the natives are out there has been taken. And Miles, you can speak to that if you'd like to.
Jennifer, before you go, and I don't know if it would be within your purview or that of Miles, but go back to when you said that the dry well would not be appropriate because of the water table. You said the plan shows alternatives. Mechanism for collecting the water. And that's what I've got the plan here, and I'm just trying to figure out what it is or where it is.
We've indicated in a plant bed, it's probably a little easier to see where my planting plan shows versus on the engineering drawings, but you can see a green line that shows where the plant bed is. If you're looking at the house, it's on the eastern side of the property and the lower side of the property, I would say. And that plant bed will contain a swale that has water loving plants in it.
So if you're coming in the driveway, I know what you said. I'm just trying to get you said the east side. So if you're in the driveway, it's the right side and back of the house.
That's right. Yes.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking at the engineering plan and I don't.
Yeah.
Is there any reference here to the swale?
There is a note.
Topographically is what I'm asking about.
We did not put it topographically. We put a note in there of a planted swale and the volume of water for that first flash rain event of 28 cubic feet.
I see where it says proposed swaled landscape beds to collect 28 cubic feet first flush of rain event.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, you're powerfully close to your pump station there. Right? Because isn't that where your pump chamber is? Aren't you putting the swale in the same place that the pump chamber is? And that's got a required cover?
No, that's a different plant bed. If you go one more plant bed down, it's along the patio, the area, it's where the living space is, where the dining and the seating area is. So you can see the brown of the walls. It's a plant bed that goes along that and then along down to next to the pool.
Do you have the plan that you could share, screen share?
Let me see. Let me just pull it up. Thanks for your patience. I'm getting there. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
You may have to blow it up a little bit though first.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time blowing it up in this format. The planting, if you can see here, if you reference your own plans, this is the wall. The plant good goes along the property line down here against the pool. So it doesn't, it's not, the plant bed is not where the pump station is. It's, the swale starts right here and comes down and around into here, the swaled plant area.
I don't know if you can read it, but is it the area where it says landscaped bed?
Yes.
To the pool?
Yep.
And I know there were references there that there was some calculations made in terms of its capacity.
Yes.
And I'm looking, here it is here. Proposed swaled landscape beds to collect 28 cubic feet, first flush of rain event. What is that based on? I mean, I know if you've got a Cultec chamber and it's of a certain size, it'll handle whatever, 100 gallons.
Right.
But have you done calculations that this swale is going to?
We did. So yes, we took it's overall, if you include the pool, it's 1,300 square feet of hardscape. And then we took a 1/4 inch first flush rain event and calculated that out to be 28 cubic feet.
And what's the first flood? How about a 1/4 inch? What's that come from? A 5-year storm?
I believe so. George and Pete worked those out.
But what if it's a 25-year storm or a 50-year storm or a 100-year storm?
It's difficult because of that high water table. Putting in a dry well where there's potential high water table, then it wouldn't be effective. So we were trying to come up with a plan where the water would be collected. The infiltration of the water in this area might be compromised slightly. So we were hoping that this would collect the rain events that we had indicated.
Is there some other simple mechanism that, like a French drain or something that could just take that water in a northerly towards the back of the property?
Take it and bring it to where towards the back.
Beyond the pool. I'm just, I don't know if this is going to create any water for your neighbors. That's why I'm asking. And I'm just saying, if you had some kind of a French drain there that, you know, it'll look fine and operate naturally, and it just might move the water toward the back of the property rather than toward, and I understand the elevation is going towards the neighbor.
Yeah, if we have the swale going down so that it comes down in this area here, then the water would be maintained on the Precious property.
Okay. Tom, do you have, I know that this is near and dear to the heart of Hans, but he's not here. Tom, do you have any thoughts, or I didn't mean to exclude Wendy or Arthur, but do you have any thoughts, Tom, on that?
Well, looking at the plan, does that mean the dry well and strip drain will not be installed?
Not in the back area. In the front, yes, but not in the back.
Yeah, I see one where the driveway opens out toward the house. It's indicated on the plan. A dry well and a strip drain.
Yep.
So that will stay, huh? That's still in?
Yes.
Good, because the water will be coming down the driveway.
Yes.
And you have the additional pavement where the driveway is paved next to the house. I guess that's going to deliver this water you're talking about. And in order to steer it through this swale, you will have to dig a swale, right?
Yes.
You'll have to make a feature.
Yes.
Yeah, and we don't have that in any form except a verbal description at this point, but it does seem like it could work. I know that the boundary that it will run along is the same one where the arborvitaes are proposed, and it sort of overlooks the next lot down. So in order to prevent that water from going to that lot, this swale will have to be formed. But yeah, I think once it is formed, I don't see why it wouldn't work.
So what are you saying, Tom? It should be topographically indicated on the plan?
Well, yeah, somehow it has to be part of the order. So that the required work will be done. We don't really have a drawing of the swale at this point, right?
Correct. At least not on the engineering plan that we're looking at.
Right.
You know, I don't really know what your practice is, but I think it should be part of the order, and there should be some documentation that describes it.
You're requesting some sort of a detail?
Yes.
Produced. Tom Peters, is that something that we can do?
Peter Lyons.
Peter Lyons, I'm sorry.
Hey, good evening. This is Peter here with Collins Engineering. Sorry, I'm having issues with my video working, but I am looking at the drawing. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the contours, it's pretty evident that the existing flow pattern coming off the driveway is already heading towards the property line. You know, one thing I note with this is by introducing that strip drain at the top of the driveway, we are already capturing a lot of the existing water that would be going down there anyways. So yes, we will have some new runoff from the proposed patio, but we will be eliminating a significant amount upstream of the drain. I mean, just looking at it, it's a rough one-to-one swap of what we're collecting in the upper dry well versus what we're generating from the new proposed work. So overall, even without the swaling, we won't really be increasing the amount of surface water. It'll just be kind of coming from a different area, but ultimately it's going to be running right down the side of the house and crossing over the property line. We could help to redirect that to some extent, you know, by creating swales basically from the back corner of the house along the proposed work, and then, you know, directing it towards the wooded area, towards like wetland flag 3 and 11, that the bump out in the green line, you know, we can kind of try to direct it that way, but we will be ultimately kind of fighting the natural grade of the land out there. But I guess my important, you know, thing, like I said, is we're not significantly increasing the runoff because we're capturing so much of it from the upstream portion of this work.
Yeah, but you're increasing it. I mean, there's a net increase by the impervious surface that you're adding. And I think we're in agreement it's somewhere around 1,300 square feet. It's not a huge area of land, but it's still a net increase. I just don't want the neighbors to have, you know, be the recipients of that if there's an easy way to ensure that doesn't happen. I think there is that would fit with the landscape and the swale. I said a French drain, but I'm not hung up on that, and the swale is probably a better idea. And Tom, you think that would work, correct?
I don't see why not. It's a matter of confining any surface runoff.
Yeah.
So you have to make a little berm of some kind. Otherwise, it will go over the line. And I think you could draw it on this plan to show where it is. And then everybody would know what was intended.
Yeah, I know. It definitely should be on the plan. It shouldn't be just a discussion, but it should be an approved plan. And the only issue that I had, Peter, I think you just mentioned the swale running from the back. I guess it would be the east corner of the house. That was my original concern when I looked at it, because that might go right over the top of the pump chamber. I don't know how much space there is there between the property line. You could probably estimate that pretty well, but what are we talking about?
You have about 10 feet between the property line and the pump chamber. The pump chamber itself, that is going to be kind of reconstructed with a new riser and a new steel watertight securable cover. So just looking at this, I mean, I don't want to get caught up on the idea of a swale. I mean, in this particular case, it might be more of a berm along the property line that would prevent, rather than a depression, it might be more of a mound along the erosion control line, or just inside, which would kind of keep everything in the property. There was mention of a French drain. To me, that implies like a stone trench kind of situation. Typically, we want to avoid that. I mean, that's really going to collect the water, and it's only going to speed it up. It might redirect it to where we want to go, but you're kind of speeding up the path. The best case for this would be probably, a combination of like an earthen berm with some landscaping features, some vegetation and plants, or grass, just to slow that water flow down. So we want to redirect it, but we also want to slow it down a little bit.
That makes sense to me.
I agree.
Right, and I think it would probably fit with Jennifer's plan. I mean, the landscape component of it, it would look nice.
It'll go right along that plant bed. I think it would be, it would work very well, very nicely with what we've already proposed.
All right. So I didn't mean to get hung up on that. That sounds like it's an easy fix. There are some other issues though that we discussed, and part of it has to do with the last discussion we had, Tom. You were concerned with the treatment of the invasives, and we get kind of bogged down in that discussion at the site walk. I'm not saying it's a bad discussion. It's just that, I don't think we ever resolved it. So where are we on that? What's the proposal from the applicant and response by the Conservation Commission to use or not use the herbicides?
Are you asking us? I'm sorry. Or are you asking?
No, I'm actually, I'm looking, you can't tell, but I'm looking at Tom and
okay, that's what
Wendy.
Well, just to jump in, I would say that I did question an order that we would issue that would approve the use of the herbicides in the wetlands. That's what was proposed.
Right.
I believe it was painting the stumps of the woody broadleaf invader, namely porcelain berry, just taking over the wetland. And I certainly didn't object to removing it, but I said it would be nice if it could be removed mechanically, because then we wouldn't be concerned about other impacts that the herbicide might have. Since we spoke, I did read more about tricloper in some depth, and I feel that it's regarded pretty much as safe for landscaping if it's used properly. Whether it has any impacts on wetlands, that's a little harder to tell. But if it's the case that
Walker, what's he now saying about Walker's problems?
If it's the case, I don't know who that is.
I don't either, Tom.
Yeah, if it's the case that it will be used once and painted on stumps, I will be okay with that. Even though my overall preference is to avoid using herbicides in wetlands. And I would say that this comes from experience, because I have treated invasives. I managed the Willett Pond for Nepra. I had to kill a lot of invasives, and I had done it both ways. I had done it with herbicides, and I've done it mechanically. And something I learned from that experience was that both work, but everything comes back. In other words, whether I killed things with chemicals or killed them with loppers, they came back. Something came back. I had to go back. And my conclusion was that if I had to keep going back, I think it was better for the wetland if I went back with the loppers than with the chemicals, simply because I felt that the chemicals were a wild card, and I really wasn't that comfortable with what impacts they might be having. So that's just my background on the issue, but I certainly think that Parterre is very expert and competent and has a lot of experience. And so I'm trying to give some deference to the point of view.
I guess if I may, this is Miles with Parterre Ecological. Tom, I appreciate your feedback on that, and it's a lot of similar issues that I struggle with on a regular basis in doing invasive plant management. We certainly combine and would initially combine mechanical removal on this particular project initially. We'd be cutting and removing the porcelain berry and then treating the stumps with a triclopyr-based herbicide mixed with blue dye. We have been involved in several other projects with, with porcelain berry as well as bittersweet and other invasive plants that we've identified on this particular site. And there is when you remove the vegetation, there's obviously an immense flush of regrowth that occurs from the seed bank, as well as from root sprouts after the initial cutting and painting of the roots. So it would have to be more than like a one-time application. With other commissions, we look at this as working with the notice of intent over that 3-year order of conditions and really managing it at the appropriate time, given the given the way that it's written up in the document. Again, the field technicians that I have working with me are licensed and experienced applicators in the state. This is the type of work that we do on a regular basis. And, and we want to do this as safely, as efficiently as possible. So for the applicator and also for the environment. So that's really the work that we're doing every day. And I think that, if we're looking at in terms of like how effective is this going to be, maybe another way of looking at this too is, many conservation commissions will also request like monitoring reports annually, to just basically write to the commission, give them notice of like the work that was completed that particular season and give feedback in terms of like how the work is being done. So that might be a way of, kind of looking at this project a little bit longer term, starting ideally this, fall into early winter with some of the mechanical and cutting and dabbing, and then going back spring into early summer next year to start doing some hand pulling and further treatment. So that's just, if other members have questions about, the invasive management, I'm happy to answer that.
Do we, as a commission, have a policy about herbicides and wetlands?
Not that I'm aware of, Tom.
We lose the chair.
Yes, sir, Arthur. He's coming back in right now.
Good, thank you, Sean. And the other thing that we could take a look at, maybe some state guidelines on this. But I agree with what both speakers have said, and this isn't a one opportunity activity. It's going to take several years, particularly with the seed banks that were mentioned. And those seeds can last from 3 to 5 years.
The area is moist and sunny. It will certainly grow something. And I guess the project in my mind is replacing the things you don't want with the things you do. And I like all the aspects of the project in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's also a key ingredient here, that you look at what the existing conditions are. You know, if we were to mechanically go in and cut currently and not use any herbicides, I mean, I think we can all assume what the result would be, that those invasives would just grow back, and that the homeowner would have, you know, it would have been, you know, loss in cause. We also have, as we were requested, if I may, we also had this plant list associated with can everyone see the proposed planting schedule?
Yes.
Yes.
So associated with the restoration, this would most likely take place beginning next late summer into early fall. It would be a combination of this is after removal of the initial invasive, so you're looking to remove the existing majority of invasives that are there, and starting off late next summer with seeding in through some of these disturbed locations, removal of sections of that lawn, creating a combination of wet meadow habitat, as well as a fairly extensive list, as you can see here, of native shrubs and trees. Again, this is overall like a betterment of an existing condition that exists now that we're asking the commission approval to do. We're essentially in this particular buffer looking to remove the invasive plant species and respond with a combination of seed, live stake, conservation grade, up to larger container native plant species.
I agree. This is the way to go, because when these things come in, they will suppress the invasives for you. They will shade the ground and take up the space that the porcelain berry won't have anymore. But on the other hand, you can never stop. It won't be just 3 years. It will be forever if you want to keep invasives out of there. And ideally, the homeowner will be able to do that at some point. But I think this is a reasonable and prudent approach to improving that area. I don't think we can make a policy about herbicides now. I'm just somewhat uncomfortable about them, and I think this is a reasonable use of them.
Tom, I might have missed what is the reasonable use?
Well, the fact that they're painting
okay,
and doing a lot of foliar application. Painting means you cut the stump.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that really restricts the amount of herbicide you're going to use. This is a plant hormone chemical. It's like a plant hormone, and it makes the plants grow uncontrollably, and that kills them. And it works on particularly broadleaf plants, and it's a biological organic compound that breaks down quite quickly. It's like used in very small quantities, and just in sun and water, it tends to turn into other things quite quickly. So it does seem like a safe chemical to compare to others that have been used in the past, simply because there doesn't seem to be any research that shows it's damaging.
Yep. So sounds like we have a resolution. Correct? I missed I don't know what happened to my internet. I apologize. I missed some, but it sounds like there's a consensus.
I guess I am ready to approve what was proposed myself.
I am also.
Okay, good. And Wendy?
You're muted, Wendy.
Yeah. Just nod.
Sorry, there I am. Yes, I'm ready to vote as well.
Okay, all right, good. Now, we do have some changes in the plan coming, but I think we can make a vote contingent upon receipt of a plan coming in. I don't have in front of me all the notes that Steve Ivas took. And I think he recorded them actually. I just don't have them in front of me. But I think there's an awareness, and we'll certainly make sure there's an awareness when we put it into the order itself. But we're talking about maintaining the wet meadow that we discussed and allowing the continued grassed-in area closer to the house. There were essentially two strips that we were looking at, and the demarcation is going to go back to the wet meadow area, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, and we've received, I think, from you. We got the specs for the pool. That
Yes.
it's a closed system. It's a cartridge filter system, so
Yes.
there's no discharge into the wetlands. That was one of the things we requested. We requested that you move it 2 feet away from the wetlands. You did that. And then we've come to a consensus on the mechanism for removing the invasives. The plant list looks good. So I think we're ready to issue a notice of intent, order of conditions.
And the rocks were minimized.
Yes, I left that out. The rocks were minimized. All right, well, with those conditions, and then I think you already know all of our regular, I call them boilerplate conditions. That is, you can't store equipment overnight within our jurisdiction. You know where the boundaries are. So if you've got a backhoe in there, you can't leave it overnight, and you can't refuel it within our jurisdiction. But I think the plans show that you've got space to park it out near the street. But that will be in the condition as well. So with that and with those conditions that we've talked about and will be written out, I think we've hit them all. Is there a motion to issue the order of conditions?
I move we issue the order.
All right, thanks, Tom. Is there a second? Wendy, thank you very much. Any discussion? You know something, let me stop the vote because I don't think I technically asked for any comment from abutters. And that was my mistake, so I apologize for that. So if I can kind of back up the train a little bit and ask, are there abutters or any member of the public that has a question or would like to make a comment? I hear none, so we're back on track with the motion as expressed. It's been made, it's been seconded, no further discussion, am I correct? Hearing none. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, John Kiernan. Thanks all, I appreciate it very much.
Great, thank you,
Thank you.
members of the commission. Great job by the team.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So that was number 7 on the agenda. 8, 9, 10, 11 have been continued. We're up to 12. Notice of intent at 582 Blue Hill Avenue. Thank you for your patience. I think I say that at every meeting. Thank you for your patience again. Who is Phil? Are you here? He was here. I don't see him. Phil Cadero, where are you? When we continued, we only continued the Canton Avenue site. And for the public's benefit, we did receive a GCA report this evening at about 5 o'clock, maybe 5 minutes of 5. And I sent it on to the commissioners and to the interested parties. GCA is the retained consultant for the Conservation Commission, and they were asked to weigh in on some of the issues that have been raised at the previous public meetings. And I confess that as soon as I hit the send button, I ran off to another meeting. I have actually not read the report from GCA. I don't know if anybody else had a chance. I know it went out to all the commissioners and it went out to Dan Hill, counsel for the Neighbors Association. I'm stalling here because I don't see Phil. He was on board, but I don't know what happened to him. Can anybody else? Sean, do you see?
John, while you're doing that, just for a moment, I noticed at least one abutter to the 648 Canton Avenues showing up, and I know that you continued that at the start of the hearing to December, to the November date. I just want to confirm
Yes,
that item has been continued.
you are correct, Ned. Thank you. I don't recognize.
I see Leonardo, one name is Leonardo, and Leonardo is in the butter.
All right.
I did submit, as soon as you notified us at the start of the hearing, I notified my clients that it had been continued, but may not
Okay.
have gotten out to all of them.
Well, they're perfectly welcome to stay. Leonardo, you're welcome to stay and participate, but 648 to 652 Canton Avenue has been continued until November 15th. It's not the 8th, as you might think, being the second Tuesday, but that's election day, so our meeting is on the 15th of the month. And I am stumped. Is there anybody else from the applicant side?
Mr. Chair, I don't have eyes on anyone. Who was the person you said you were looking for?
Phil Cadero.
There's no such person in the participants column.
I'll be done. And what about Dan Hill? He's
no Dan Hill either.
He's counsel for the neighborhood group. What am I missing here?
I don't think you're missing anything, but usually, yeah, there's only the participants column for this particular meeting set up, and I don't see anyone.
And what about, because Scott Horsley was at our last public meeting on this, correct, Ned?
Scott Horsley was here, and I admitted him at least 3 separate times, and each time he exited. So I don't see him here anymore either.
All right, I'm going to stall here. And let me see if I can get Phil Cadero. I think I've got a telephone number for him. Sorry for the delay, but this is an important agenda item. Phil, John Kiernan calling. It's 9:45, and we lost you. I don't see anything. We continued the Canton Avenue. Rather well. I just left a message, but it was an office line, so I don't think you'll get it. So why don't we just keep stalling? I'm going to try to email him at the same time that we're talking. But the next agenda item is 13. So why don't we just put 12 on hold and go to revised landscape plan at 5. Blue Hill Avenue. Who's going to speak on behalf of, I would try to pronounce your name, ma'am, but Eugenia?
Eugenia. It's just
Okay.
Eugenia.
Okay, good. All
Hi,
right.
John.
thanks.
Hi, members of the commission. And first of all, thank you so much that you are spending so much time with our project, because we started it back in 2016. So 6 years after, we are almost at the end. And so the last obstacle, and John, you correctly explained at the very beginning that we had an escrow account of 67,200 at the closing with the buyer's attorney. And we were supposed to place a bond for the benefit of the town of Milton, the surety bond, to ensure the vegetation of the plants for 2 growing seasons. So first of all, we have planted all the plants, both according to the landscaping plan and the arborvitaes along the driveway that were under the agreement, that were approved by the zoning board as the agreement between the 2 neighbors when the neighborhood plan was approved. And altogether, it took us 16,600, as you also mentioned at the beginning. After that, we have been working for almost 3 months, with the bond broker and with the insurance broker. And ultimately, like 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we received a message that that there is nobody in the market that is willing to give us a bond. And through this time, we were not able to get the money from the escrow because one of the conditions there is the bond. So we paid the landscapers ourselves. Also, Steve Ivers has been with the field inspection twice. And at one of the inspections, he mentioned that the plantings were not surviving very well due to the lack of the watering. And we went to the extent that we installed an additional irrigation system, both the sprinkles and the dripping system along the arborvitaes, along for each tree separately. It is surrounded by the circle, dripping water, and all the plantings next to the wetlands. Also, like paying for all of that ourselves. So currently, we would like to request the town to consider us putting the 16,600, although it's like more than the wetlands plantings, with the escrow for the benefit of the town because we were not able to get the bond.
I understand that. Thank you very much. It was very articulate and concise, and I think it's of a benefit to the commission members. I've had the opportunity to talk to Jeff Kane on this issue. So at his request, I actually called Jim McAuliffe, the town treasurer, and I'm trying to figure out where to put the money. The problem is we don't want to put it into an operating account because it looks like revenue and it has to be classified. Yeah. We don't, and according to Jim, we don't have a trust account. So we tried everything, and one suggestion was, as the engineering department does, they'll sometimes take a check and hold it. The problem with holding a check is we've got to hold it for 2 years.
And it's not valid. I'm so sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
So one of the emails that Jeff kindly forwarded to the Conservation Committee was the letter from our attorney, Boris Maiden, that the escrow can be placed either with him, and he is willing and ready to hold it for the, to draft the escrow agreement and to hold it for 2 years for the benefit of the town, or with the same attorney from Bennett and Bennett Mary Leary. So both of them work for us, and they are both willing to do that. So it's up to you to decide for the conservation, I mean.
And that's true. And that was one of the alternatives, because if we hold the check for 2 years, it'll by its own terms become void.
Yeah.
And Jim McAuliffe was great. He called the bank and said, what's going to happen? Well, we could, fix it, 2 years down the road. I actually think your idea or your attorney's idea is an appropriate one, because attorneys all hold money in what's called an IOLTA account. It's an acronym. It's interest on lawyers' trust accounts. So there is no interest on it, but the lawyers can hold it pursuant to a escrow agreement. It's very common in the practice, even though the lawyer's you think he's on the other side or she's on the other side, but in fact, it's very common in conveyancing that when a piece of property is sold, that funds are often held in these lawyer escrow accounts. So we'd have to come up with the terms of the escrow agreement, which is pretty simple. But that's acceptable to me. But this is the first time the other commissioners are hearing about it, that it could be held in a lawyer's account as opposed to the town account, which would have been my first choice. But we don't have such an account. That comes from our town treasurer.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I would like to iterate one thing. I myself personally have been working closely with the bond broker, and we have provided like the financials for the past 3 years. And still after 3.5 months of, like providing documents, reviewing, answering questions, they told us that they cannot issue a bond. And we're like, okay, we are willing to go even with the cash bond. So like not 10%, like the 100%. And still our application was denied. So unfortunately, that's our own option, because we have the money held in the escrow, but we keep paying to all the contractors and everybody. So we definitely want to resolve this matter, both for our benefit and for the benefit of the town.
All right. Well, it's an acceptable approach to me. We need an escrow account that the money will be held for a period of 2 years to ensure the 75% survivability of the plantings. The planting plan has been approved. It's fine, and we're thankful and happy that you're underway and you've got them planted. We just have to sit on it and wait. So it's acceptable to me.
It was all the plants were planted. So according to the plans, everything. Some of the plantings were like replanted because they were not surviving very well. But after that, Steve Ivers inspected it again, and everything looked perfect there.
Good. All right. So Wendy, do you have any questions or concerns about having their attorney hold it in? Did you say it was Marie Leary?
Marie Leary was the buyer's attorney. Our attorney was Boris Maiden. So it actually doesn't matter which attorney holds the escrow. Like for me, it doesn't have, it's the same.
Oh, okay. No, and I wouldn't pay. I just happen to know and have huge respect and a very high regard for Marie Leary. She's a family friend. So it's what I heard. I didn't know if she was involved.
She's holding the escrow right now, like her company. I mean, Bennett and Bennett, they are holding the escrow.
Okay, she's got it. Well, either one would be fine. I just happen to know her, but it really doesn't matter to me. But Wendy, I'm just trying to get your response, Tom's response, and Arthur's response to see if that's acceptable to you. That's actual cash held in a lawyer's account, and it's a trust account. There are all kinds of fiduciary duties and obligations that the attorneys have to keep the fund safe. And that's monitored and enforced by the Board of Bar Overseers. The response is pretty draconian by the BBO if there's any mistake in an IOLTA account. So I feel quite confident that the law firm would be a safe place to protect the town's interest. Wendy, do you have any concerns?
As long as you're confident, John, and there's no opposition from any of the other commissioners, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Tom, any concerns that you have?
I'm going with you, John. This is coming in late on this. I'm going with your opinion.
All right. Arthur?
I'm with Wendy and Tom. It's in your hands, capable hands, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I certainly tried with Jim McAuliffe, and he was wonderful, by the way, calling the bank and everything, but everybody agreed that the checks are not going to be any good after 2 years. So, all right, then at least as a matter of concept, we can vote to approve the escrow account, and then I can take care of the details. I can call. If Marie's got it right now, I can reach out to her and just work out the language with her. And it's going to be very simple and straightforward that,
Yes.
you know, the funds are to be held for the benefit of the town if in fact there's a less than 75% survival rate after 2 years. And if after the 2 years goes by, everything's fine, then we just return the money to you.
The only last, let's say the last request, while we work on that, is it possible to release to us while we're working on that, at least part of the money that were spent, like not to continue holding in the escrow currently, the 67,000, because it's like quite a lot.
Oh, the 67 is being still held?
Yes, because we cannot get it because we were not able to get the bond. So that's why I'm saying we have like 67,000 that we cannot get to, but we have to pay for the plantings, for the irrigation, for everything.
Yeah, I think we already voted on that, didn't we? To knock it from 67 down to 16? I thought we already took a vote on that.
It was for the bond, but not for the escrow. The escrow is still 67, and it is being held until we provide the bond, and we were not able to do this. So that's why we need your decision on this as well.
You are correct that the escrow for 67,000 was, the escrow agreement could only last for 3 months, and the idea was we'll just replace it with a bond.
Yeah.
So yes, the exchange is perfect. The reduction is acceptable. And our new technique of holding it in escrow instead of having the bond replace it, that's acceptable as well. So I understand. I want to make sure everybody else understands, because originally we had $67,000 held because that was the estimated cost on the first landscape plan, which we all agreed was pretty high. The accepted landscape plan only cost $16,600. So that all of what you just said is acceptable to me as well. Is there a consensus, Wendy?
I'm sorry, what was that, John?
Well, I just want to make sure you're comfortable and understand what's happening, because originally we had made the homeowner put aside $67,000, but then we all agreed that the landscape plan wasn't going to cost that much.
Right.
And in fact, it cost $16,600, and the invoice was submitted to us by Jeff Kane a couple of months ago. So we've had that, and we've discussed it at public meetings.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tom, do you A, understand what's going on, and B, approve of it?
A, not so much as B. I think the talk about where you keep money is sort of not my thing, and so again, John, your plan is my plan.
Okay. Arthur, you okay with that?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
All right. And I will work with, I can reach out to Marie Leary tomorrow. That won't be an issue.
I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. But we do need to have a vote. And the motion would be to approve in lieu of a bond, which we've already voted on, that we would accept an escrow agreement with counsel for is she the seller's attorney or the buyer's attorney?
The buyers.
The buyer's attorney, okay. All right, escrow in an IOLTA account, which is a lawyer's trust account, to be held under the terms and conditions that the monies would be returned when we have confirmed that there's a 75% survivability of the plantings after 2 years. Is there such a motion?
If yours was indeed a motion, I'd be happy to accept, give a second to it.
All right, I'll make the motion. That was my motion.
Second.
Second, all right. Any discussion? Well, before I start, are there any abutters or members of the public that have a question? Or would like to ask a question? Hearing none and no discussion among the commission members. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right. Tom, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
All right. And I vote yes as well, John Kiernan. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
All right. And now I'm embarrassed because when I went to email Phil, he had emailed me and said, in light of the late submission of the GZA report, and admittedly, we all got it at 5 o'clock tonight. He asked for a continuance of that.
Correct.
So even though I didn't mention it, he thought that that was he was in the same group as Canton Avenue. So he must have assumed that they were both continued.
Yeah, I think he had 2 emails, John. That's I.
Is there another one?
Earlier tonight.
I'm looking at one that is.
He has one at 4:40 and he has one at 5:34.
Right. I've got one at 5:33. That's the one I never saw because as soon as I hit the send button, I had to run out the door.
Okay.
In Boston. So it says, I'll tell you what it says. Given the receipt of this information and our inability to review it and comment on it in a timely fashion, on behalf of the applicant, I am requesting a continuance from this evening's meeting for us to meet again on November 8th. In the interim, I'd like permission to coordinate a quick follow-up call with Ms. Hall. I want to make sure the commission is represented during that call. Is there a time where I can hold a call with Ms. Hall coordinated with a member of the commission present so they can represent the interests of the commission and be part of the exchange? So yeah, I will take care of that to coordinate it.
Mr. Chair, MATV here. Daniel Hill has re-entered.
Oh, yes.
With this, would you like me to ask him to unmute to see if he has anything to say?
Yes. Dan, were you just able to hear what I said?
I was. I just joined the meeting. I was stuck in another meeting. So I understand that we're being continued.
Yeah, yes, that's the bottom line.
Okay, in November
Long
8th.
story, but that's the short. We're being continued at the request of the applicant. And the reasoning was the late receipt of the GZA memo, but you got a copy of that as well, Dan, correct?
I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good.
But we have to check the date because the 8th is election.
Yes, yeah, and correct. It is the 15th, but he wrote that before
Correct.
I knew that there was a mistake in that, but I'll
So the
take
continuation will be until
November 15th, the November meeting, correct.
Beautiful.
All right, good. So that now concludes the agenda because we did 13, which is 593 Blue Hill Avenue. The 12, 582 Blue Hill Avenue has been continued. 14, request for certificate of compliance, 175 Governor Stoughton has already been continued. And the Lower Guile Field Road, that's information only, that was continued. So we're on to additional business. Does anybody have any additional business?
None here, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And Tom, Wendy, I have nothing. All right, thanks. This was a little bit logistically confusing tonight, but I appreciate everyone's patience. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Wendy?
Second.
Perfect.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Good night, all.
Good night, all. Thank you very much for your
Good night,
patience.
everyone.
Good job.
Thank you.
Bye.